Welcome to Talking Tech Journeys, hosted by me, Ben Whiteley of BPM Tech. We're delighted to bring you season 1 of Talking Tech Journeys. The aim is clear, to bring you some of the most engaging and respected figures within tech and transformation, providing a snapshot of their journeys to share knowledge, ideas and insights on all things tech and transformation. Sit back, relax and enjoy the journey. Welcome to Talking Tech Journey Season 1. I'm Ben Whiteley, delighted to be joined by Dorigen Sykes, Managing Director, ITrain Legal, the technology training experts who exist to help your organisation make the best out of technology and systems. How are you?
I'm really well, thanks, Ben. Thanks so much for inviting me. Really looking forward to it.
Absolutely, yeah. No, it's good to sort of take time out and understand your journey and who you are and what you're about. So just before we sort of get into your journey and expertise, we do share a passion, and we're not going to dwell on it, but it's Huddersfield Town. So I know that's obviously, you've done some sort of fundraising for Yorkshire Air Ambulance and undertaken sort of elements of Tour de Yorkshire and things like that. So how was your experience with all that?
Oh, it's incredible. It's one of the best things I've ever done. I mean, it sort of combines my passions of football and cycling and the fresh air and whatnot. But I'd never done anything like it before. We went to Brighton from Huddersfield, down to the southwest, and then around Yorkshire. And it's just that traveling slowly is a very different dynamic from the way that we usually rush from place to place, and you really get to appreciate life at that pace, and you see things you would never see. And the camaraderie and the teamwork between everybody who did it, that was something really special. So although I was the navigator, so there were some disagreements along the way. We ended up in a field or two.
Yeah, well, as long as you made it in the end, I suppose.
We did, yeah. I think we all back in one piece.
Yeah, all good memories, no doubt.
Oh, great, yeah.
Good. Well, many thanks for your time, and looking forward to this. So we'll jump straight in and sort of just take you back then. So in terms of how, why, and when did you first become interested in technology, law, business transformation?
Well, it's fair to say that technology and business transformation would definitely be my passions. I studied law. I did a postgrad diploma in law in Huddersfield, and I pretty much decided it wasn't for me. I didn't hate it, but I worked out it was really who you know and not what you know, and I didn't really know anyone. So I think if I'd have really loved it, I would have persevered. But as it was, I thought I don't think I've got the energy to pursue this career, and I don't care about it enough to do that. So although I made a lot of effort doing the postgrad, then I left it. Whereas technology, I'm a real fan of. I've always been a bit of a geek at heart, I think. I love a new gadget, love something to play with. And we're actually looking at Copilot training at the moment, Microsoft Copilot. And so I've got a Copilot license, and I'm into my Copilot license, and I'm enjoying playing with that and see what happens. And I kind of wandered into tech, not by accident, but I was working for Manpower, and it was just after the year 2000, and I'm sure you're too young to remember that, but there's a big buzz about tech at that time, and someone told me that was the thing to be in, and I like the logic of IT. I always enjoyed logical things, so I thought I think I might be quite good at that, and I became part of their technical support team. But again, I saw people with a real passion to do tech, and they'd have servers in their bedrooms and switches in their bathrooms, and they've made a network out of their own homes, and I just wasn't that into it. So although I really enjoyed tech, I thought I'm not going to be able to compete with these people who really love it. And I preferred the people side. I preferred how people use tech, how is an enabler to help people to achieve things and get the most out of it. And that kind of led me eventually into training tech and transformation. I found it much more satisfying to show somebody else how to use it and how to get something out of it, and a better way of using the system. That satisfaction was kind of what made me happy at work, I guess. So that's my career eventually.
Good. Well, I'm sure. Yeah, we'll sort of come on to that. I know you sort of your career. You did some traveling as well, so you spent a bit of time over in Australia. Sort of, how was that? Was it an experience?
Yeah, it was incredible. I went to, I went to Australia on a tourist visa,
Ah, okay.
and I came back with a passport, so I did I did pretty well, which is fairly unusual even in those days. But
Yeah.
it was interesting because I'd started my tech career in the UK, and when I went to Australia, I was starting from the absolute beginning. They didn't accept anything that I'd done in the UK, so I really had to
Okay.
start from the ground up and sort of beg, borrow, and steal a job. And I did data entry for a while, and then I ended up on a help desk and worked my way up. So it was hard starting from the beginning because I was in my mid-20s. I wasn't that young, and I felt like, or maybe late 20s. I felt like I probably,
Yeah.
yeah, I was a bit beyond where I had to start. But there was a really good experience in forging a life for yourself somewhere where you've got
Yeah.
no connection whatsoever. And I got my first real management job over there as well. So
Okay.
I worked for the government, and they were brilliant at training. They taught me how to be a manager really and a leader. And then I took an awful lot from my time there. So it was really really rewarding.
There's a difference in sort of people and culture over in Australia to the UK.
Yes, there is. Yeah. One of the beautiful things about working in Australia is everyone loves to be outside. So
Yeah.
they would encourage you to join their sports teams and leave work and go and join. I joined the volleyball team. I never played volleyball in my life. I was playing five-a-side football on a Friday afternoon, and they really value that side of life in a way that I'm not sure that we really do appreciate that. And I think the weather helps, obviously, doesn't it, with
Absolutely.
being
Yeah.
able
Yeah.
to get out and enjoy the sunshine. So yeah, it's more relaxed. It is more relaxed, but yeah, it's a slightly different pace, especially in
Yeah.
Adelaide where I was, which is not a sprawling metropolis by any means.
But like you say, it's still got the sunshine, which yeah,
Yeah.
always helps when you're doing the outdoor activities, no doubt.
Oh yeah, and it just elongates the day because you come home
Mm,
from work and you'll go out and sit out on your patio or whatever and barbecue or something. I
yeah.
know it sounds a bit stereotypical, but it does happen, and it's
Yeah.
great fun. It is.
Good. So I know you touched on you did diploma in law from Huddersfield. So I know you came back to the UK and then sort of entered into the legal firm DWF in terms of IT training, IT service management. I mean, how did you sort of find your experience of getting your first position in the legal sector?
Well, I came back from the UK knowing that I wanted to be a legal IT trainer. That's what I wanted to do.
Mm,
No, sorry, I didn't. I came back wanting to be a trainer,
mm,
not a legal IT trainer. That I wanted a job doing IT training wherever, and the kind of jobs that were advertised didn't seem like many places actually wanted trainers, with the exception of law firms.
mm.
And law firms were putting a really good salary next to the trainer as well. So to be honest, that's really what attracted me. I thought these law firms seem to be paying more than anybody else for the same job. This is
Yeah.
something I'm going to give it a go. And so I did, and DWF were the first ones that I applied to, and I went there for the interview, and it's so intimidating going to a law firm for the first time because they're if you look behind under the hood of a law firm,
Mm,
they're not slick at all, but the sheen of it and the client facing facade was
mm.
quite intimidating. So, and I didn't know any of that then. So I feel like I was actually quite lucky because it was my first job interview, but the three people I met in the interview, they knew I could do it.
Mm,
They bought into me and they believed me, and I don't really think I believed in myself. But
mm,
they saw something in me that they 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 just thought that's the person for us, and they told me this afterwards clearly. And they offered me the job pretty much there and then. And so I think I was lucky because I think those are people I still know now, and we
yeah.
just clearly gelled.
Mm.
We from straight away we hit it off, and that's where my career started really. But I don't know what you think, but I think sometimes you've got to be a bit lucky with that chemistry with people, being someone
100%.
different, maybe
Yeah.
not.
especially interview, you know, it's a very couple of hours maximum, and yeah, it's you can't, you've either got that spark and rapport or not, unfortunately. And like I say, it's all about that opportunity. And I suppose going back to what you mentioned, it's what you know, who you know, but then what you do with who you know, and opportunities do sort of tend to open doors. And in your case, it was probably the first one. So you just sort of mentioned there, was it more generalist training, or was there always an element of sort of IT systems from the early days?
Sorry, I made it sound a bit confusing. It was IT training. It was always IT training. I like systems.
Mm.
I'm a systems trainer at heart. I like, show me a system and I'll be working out how people might use it and what questions they might have and the way in which it hangs together. That's always interested me. Actually, as I've got older, like I'm quite interested in other forms of training as well now, but back then it was all about technology and how things worked. And unbeknownst to me, they were taking me on because they were about to put in a new system which called Elite 3E. And they were pretty much the first law firm in the UK to put this in, and it was bleeding edge, really. We'd call it in our industry. So it wasn't quite ready. And they were putting it out to the whole firm, and they'd taken me on as a trainer to train it to the whole firm. And that was quite the baptism of fire. It was not easy. It was the billing process. I'd never seen anything like it. And it was a massive challenge. But as I say to a lot of people, with law firms, you either sink or swim. You either love it or you hate it, and really, there's not much in between. And the challenge of it, and the nature of dealing with these incredibly eloquent and articulate and driven individuals who are the lawyers, who are also sometimes not that tolerant of technology, and certainly not tolerant of it when it doesn't work. Or when it's not doing what they want it to do. It's not for everybody, and I think that's one of the real issues when you're inside a law firm trying to recruit, which I had to do then. Once I started at DWF, I needed a trainer to work with me. It's so hard because you've got to anticipate whether somebody is going to take to it or they're really not. And I think that's why law firms tend to look for people with law firm experience. They're not taking that risk on somebody that may or may not take to it.
No, absolutely. Like I say, it's quite a unique sector with a variety of challenges, but it stuck with yourself anyway. So I mean, just you had a couple of other positions, sort of project management, training consultant, a couple of different sort of firms. I mean, was there any sort of difference in terms of, you know, who you were, what you'd learn, your experience of you know, the sort of training and systems previous?
Yeah, I mean, there were. I mean, DWF were in a big growth trajectory when I joined them. They were 800 people when I joined. There were 1,500 when I left, and it was only 4 years later. So they've nearly doubled in size. And law firms do. They're quite acquisitive. They call them mergers, but they're not mergers. They're a takeover of the law firms. And with DWF, it was so exciting, but it was absolutely relentless. It was. Every time you felt like you got somewhere or you delivered something, there'd be another 3 things to deliver. And I think in the end, I was there for 4 years, and it just, you can't continue with that pace, I don't think, long term. It was overwhelming. And I was moving to London anyway. I've been in Manchester, moving to London. So I wanted a job in London. So I went to Oldswang as a consultant, really helping them with training their 3E. So this Elite 3E sort of followed me around a bit, or I followed it, one or the other. I joined and did lots of consultation for them and helped them to put in 3E. And then I went to Brabner's, and a smaller firm again, but one that were also putting in 3E amongst other things. So, but that was when I went in more into project management. I think you sometimes, when you've been training for a few years, you can get a little bit jaded with training, particularly if it's similar content all the time. So I wanted a bit of a different challenge, go back to a bit more management and kind of challenge myself really to be able to deliver something like a 3E project, which was, you know, quite mammoth and all consuming. So that was exciting and scary at the same time. But there is a theme. Like I would encourage anyone to do this. I kind of like to put myself out of my comfort zone to see how I go and see whether I can do it or not, which is it's scary, but every time I've ever done it, whether that be move to Australia or start a career in technology or move to a new vertical that I've never dealt with before, it's always come off for me. So fortune favors the brave is my favorite expression, because I just think sometimes in life you've got to go for it.
Absolutely. I mean, that sort of falls nicely into, I suppose, the here and now, the latter point of your career to today. So I mean, was there a point where, obviously from all the experience that you just sort of mentioned and discussed, where you thought, you know what, I really believe I can drive value, influence these law firms better if I sort of set up and did it myself?
Yeah, there definitely was. So I was working at Brabner's. I was there for about 4 years, I think, and I really enjoyed it. They were a fabulous firm. They were so nice to work for. Like I felt that ceiling within a firm, and with any organisation, you're going to get this unless you're at the top. But perhaps especially with a law firm, I don't know. I could. What was my next step? Like I could become an IT director. Yeah, okay, but I'm watching the IT director at Brabner's, and he's got lots on his plate, and he's messing with budgets, and he's got all these problems, and if a server goes down, or I just thought, oh gosh, and I'm not sure that's for me. Or you could become a COO or something. I just didn't, and there's nowhere further to go in a law firm, because then you're into the partnership, and you're into people who have legal backgrounds.
Yeah.
Well, I don't see where I wanted to change things, and just as you said, I didn't feel like I could change things from where I was, because I didn't have enough of a voice. But the weirdest thing is, the thing that pushed me into leaving was I got pregnant, and I went off on maternity leave, and I didn't come back. So
Okay.
I don't know if I didn't ever intend to come back, but as I'd had that break from the law firm, and from working life, I suppose it gave me time to reassess, and I just thought, I don't want to go back into that. And I talk about, let's deliver these services back into law firms. What a great idea it was, because I'd seen it at DWF from the very early days, that when law firms go through a big change, they need a lot of help in a lot of different areas, and one of those is adoption, training, and support. Needing people who know what they're doing to come in and assist. And when I was at DWF trying to do these transformation projects, I didn't have anybody internally to do it. I had the options of employing someone permanently. I didn't need someone permanently. I needed someone for that period of time. A contractor maybe, but then a contractor is a little bit of a lottery, because will they be the right person or not? That's number one.
Sure. Yeah.
Also, will they be there? What if the project's put back, which they always are? Then I'm left with somebody either sitting on the bench for 6 months, or they wander off and do something else, and then I've got to find someone else. I couldn't see a natural, easy solution, and I thought, I wish there was a company that could come in and deliver these. See where I'm going, and deliver these services back into a law firm. So when and I talked about this for years. So when I got the opportunity, I thought, okay, I'm not going to go back to Brabner's. I'm actually going to create this company, and it's not easy.
No.
but the first client became Brabner's, so we're able to sell training services back into Brabner's. I started the company with another founder, and we took on an IT trainer, and between us we started to deliver the services ourselves. Then we did something quite I think really helpful for the business, which was we started to partner with software vendors who were supplying the software into the law firm. So we partnered with iManage first of all, who are a document management system provider, and they gave us a big contract to do of K&L Gates, which is Bill Gates's dad's law firm or something.
Excellent.
And anyway, so they had offices in the in the UK, and they had offices in Poland. So we were given this task completely out of our depth here, given this task to train all these people in the UK and Poland, and we had hardly any trainers, so we brought in more trainers in order to deliver this contract, and delivered it really successfully. And then, of course, on the back of that, we started to get more work, more partnerships, more trainers, and the business has really grown like that, so organically, from one or none to scale in a really organic way.
Good. So it's typically about eight years, is it, since you founded the business and transitioned from, well, being a mother to and obviously the law sector to founding a startup ultimately. So I mean, how did you find that transition? I know you said you had time to reflect and sort of assess and weigh things up, and it sort of grown organically. But so how did you?
Oh gosh. Well, I don't regret it.
No.
So that's a good thing. I mean, it's completely different from yourself, from being an employee and going home at the end of the day and not taking, yes, you take your job with you to a degree, but you can just shut it off, to being the founder of a business where you're responsible and in charge of everything, and it's incredibly stressful, and anybody who starts a business, I think, will go through peaks and troughs, and the highs are really high and the lows are really low, and you don't get much time to enjoy the highs. So I don't know. It's kind of difficult to reflect when you're in it, I suppose. I think that's one of the things that I've recognised recently, that we probably do need to spend more time reflecting. But the pressures of being a founder and having to pay people, having people you're responsible for them, really, and I don't think you could ever be prepared for that. And in the early days, we also had characters within the business, senior people who helped me to found the business, that then didn't behave very well, and so you've got to be really careful who you trust, I guess. So and that was the person that was in charge of the finances as well. So
right, okay,
I learned a lot of lessons really quite quickly. I think when you put yourself in a situation like that, when you go in, I went into owning a business really naively. What I didn't know, I mean, what I did know could have been written on quite a small postage stamp. So, but I guess it's a life lesson, I suppose. It's the way you learn rather than what you know. So, I learned really quickly, and I learned to adapt to the situations, and no 2 days are the same. No, no 2 weeks are the same. No, your finances are can be quite volatile, especially in those early days, and there's a lot to learn, but it's exciting. It's really exciting, and I think that's kind of what I love about it.
So just taking it back for the listeners then, I mean, just in terms of ITrain Legal, what are the core services? I know you've touched on a couple of the people that you've worked with and partnerships, but just taking it back, who are you, and what sort of problems do you solve?
Well, yes, we call ourselves the technology training experts. What we do is we help law firms to adopt, adapt, and embrace technology, really. So our real goal is to take the fear away from using technology, and bring some joy into it, really, or at least some satisfaction and confidence in being able to use systems in the way that they're supposed to be used. So that takes quite a few different forms within the business. So the core of the business still is systems change. So you have a finance system, you need a new finance system. How do you get from that old system to the new one? And not just about the technology or the amount of time it takes or the budget. We look at that fourth element that isn't always appreciated, which is actually how are people going to use it, because that's the most important thing, really. Because if your people aren't using it properly, you can get all the other things right, but your implementation is still not going to succeed. And our often cited fact is that over 80% of technology system change implementations are seen as failures. And the main reason for that is because people aren't using it properly. So that's what we're there to address, really, and we address it at all sorts of different points along the journey, from the change management, introducing change, introducing the reasons why firms are moving from one thing to another, what's in it for the person who's doing the technology, who's using the technology, what's in it for the firm, and how will that change affect the way that they do their jobs, right the way through to actually using the system, helping them to do more traditional training, whether that be instructor led or over Zoom or Teams, or even in the form of e-learning or videos, and then supporting them at the end of that change. So when they're using the system for the first time, what we used to call floor walking, that kind of virtual or real leaning over the shoulder, going, "How's it going? Can you do all these things? Do you want some help?" And just supporting and guiding through those first few days. But also the service has then evolved to a longer term service, so we can help you adopt systems and keep refreshing your knowledge to update your skills and whatnot, and keep that kind of knowledge and skill level and interest in the system going longer term. And that's why we had so much interest, and we do have so much interest from software vendors, because they're really they appreciate our service because it helps them to make sure that their system remains relevant and used and enjoyed, really.
Well, that's it, isn't it? Because technology is always changing, and no doubt your business has changed and evolved and adapted over time. I mean, obviously, you talk a lot about training and supporting end users and buying, etc. I mean, how did the COVID change the business and service offering? Was there how do you sort of mitigate and navigate the challenges there?
It was it was horrendous, really. So in one way, looking at the positive side, ITrain Legal, we've always been remote, so we don't have offices. We all work from home. We all use Teams and Zoom all the time anyway. So that's how we run our business. So when COVID came and we were all locked down, the next day at work looked exactly like the previous day. So we were one of the few companies who had that luxury of not having. All of our law firms, on the other hand, had a massive meltdown because law firms are such a different beast now to the way they were before COVID, and most companies are, I think, aren't they? But they were very traditional. One of our clients literally did everything on paper. They barely used the systems, and the changes that they had to make, the driving laptops to people's houses, that kind of thing. From an ITrain Legal perspective, it was a disaster, really, because suddenly all of the law firms didn't want to know us at all. They weren't interested in even exchanging an email with us. They shut down entirely. They went into disaster recovery mode, as you might expect. Contracts were cancelled or not signed or postponed or deferred. Nobody wanted to do a technology change transformation project. Hardly anybody did. Fortunately, 2 or 3 law firms did and still went through with it remotely. And that's what saved us, really. So we had a couple of e-learning projects that clearly could still go ahead. So we created a lot of e-learning. We furloughed nearly all of our people. There was a point where it was just me and Alison Giannini, two of the people who'd been there from the beginning. I was doing everything other than training, and she was doing training, and just the two of us were keeping the lights on and trying to get enough money into the company to be able to pay the bills, really, and keep us going. And the beautiful thing was that we did manage to keep it going. We managed to bring our trainers back gradually, various administrative people gradually, and to the point where, coming out of COVID, we were back again to a full complement of people. So we were like the poster people for the government's furlough scheme, because if it hadn't have been for furlough, we would have been gone, long gone.
Yeah.
And
a lot of businesses, very challenging time, wasn't it?
Oh, horrendous. Yeah. And we had great HR support and things like that, which really got us through. So Yeah.
But like you said, I suppose going back to the services and who you are and what you're about, change is inevitable. And
Yeah.
you obviously touched on systems and sort of other services that you provide. I mean, in terms of sort of advice, you offer to businesses, I know your phrase is ensure systems are enjoyed and not endured. I mean, what sort of methods and ways can you sort of inspire staff to embrace the change, the technology?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a lot of it's about, when I talked about the beginnings of a project and the change management aspect, it's about thinking about how to appeal to people, really. And funnily enough, it's a lot more than just IT training or change management. Well, it is change management, but it's kind of about thinking, how do you what do people like to do? What do they what are they interested in? What how do we make them interested in this change and not fearing the change? So a lot of what we do is trying to take the fear away. And the main way we think to take the fear out of things is by giving people information, because I talk quite a lot about I talk a bit about neuroscience and how when we have a lack of information, our brain fills it with all sorts of other stuff that it's because it's trying to predict what's going to happen. And if it can't predict what's going to happen with enough information, as we know, in an information vacuum, it makes loads of stuff up. And we see it all the time in society, don't we? Where people, conspiracy theories, or
Absolutely, yeah.
the most horrible things are imagined when you don't know the facts. So one of the things we think is really important is to give as much information as we can. And law firms are often, organizations in general, are often quite reticent to give out information just in case it's not right, or it turns out to be wrong further down the line, particularly when it comes to dates and things like that. But we encourage them to provide as much information as possible. We then package it up in bite-sized, kind of easily digestible formats. So we look at the commercial world and how people like little bits of YouTube and things like that. So try and make it as engaging as possible as content, to allow people to just consume it quite easily and start to build their knowledge and start to build their understanding of the change, what it means to them, and why it's not as scary as they thought it was going to be, and start to introduce them to the way it's going to look, the way they'll interact with it, perhaps do some interactive sessions so that they start to be able to get their hands on it, and just take that fear element away, so that they're suddenly able to realize that it's not that bad, realize that they can do it, give them some easy wins. So if you're doing a time recording system, let them do a little module where they record some time, and then and this is how lawyers actually bill. They record their time and bill it. So let them record some time, and then they've achieved something. And as soon as we've achieved something, our brain's reward receptors go off, and we're a little bit happier with ourselves, because we feel like actually we can do it. So those kind of methods that we found are really upfront before the change starts, enables people to embrace and become a bit closer to the technology, and take away some of that reticence to go forward with it.
So ultimately buying communication, but then I suppose you've touched on it as well in terms of continuous improvement and sort of monitoring sort of over time. I mean, should these things be monitored? Should there be metrics in place? And if so, is it something that you do, biannually, annually? Does it differ from client to client?
Yeah, it's a really difficult thing to do, actually. I was having a conversation about it earlier today. Certainly return on investment's really hard when it comes to training and user adoption, because unless you've got a process you're measuring, which is possible, you can usually pull stats out of a system to indicate whether something's being done properly or not. And certainly you can measure that before and after some kind of training intervention. But quite often it's qualitative rather than quantitative, which is really hard to measure. But you can do it. You can do it with surveys and forms and interviews with people to help to gather that data, to be able to bring back a fuller picture, alongside some of the more qualitative data, so that the facts and figures that you might be getting from a system. So a good example, which is a bit out of date now, is print. So if you're trying to teach people how to save files in a document management system rather than print them out, you could easily monitor that by looking at the print volumes after you've had some kind of intervention. So that kind of helps to put metrics in place that can actually really easily manage. But to your point, it does vary from client to client and depending on the system. But that ongoing support of people is absolutely critical, because we all know we've been involved in training sessions, or we've been involved in some kind of intervention where we've come out of it going, oh yeah, I think I've got that now. And then 3 months down the line, it's Excel's the classic. You go to an Excel course and you're like, oh, Excel's amazing. I'm going to do all the things. I'm going to put all my finances into it and do my shopping lists and and after 3 months, you've completely forgotten it all. So the idea of drip feeding little and often bits of information, pieces of training, bits of awareness, making people think is really important for buy-in and adoption. And you can really add value.
So, I mean, just to sort of summarize ultimately on, system change, technology, people, process, would there be any sort of key summary takeaways for business that are looking at adopting such change from your perspective and sort of lessons learned and from your experience?
Yeah, I mean, some of the biggest lessons really are just to invest in this area and invest in your people. One of the things I would say, and relating to what you do as well, is that increasingly people are judging organisations by their technology and by the way in which they are able to work with the technology. People find it really frustrating if they're not able to do something that they know they should be able to do with their technology, or that their technology is holding them back in their work, because we're really time poor at the moment. And I think it's probably only going to get worse.
Yeah, sure.
And we're looking to the technology to help that. And if it's actually holding us back, it's really quite a destructive force. And people really, especially the younger generation, coming in a lot less tolerant of delay and inefficiency. And so I think organisations probably need to look at that in the whole to make sure that they're servicing these people.
So like holistic approach type,
holistic approach, just making sure that people are supported and feel valued in this area as well as other areas.
Well, look, I mean, just cautious of time, so many thanks for the conversation and lots of great examples and insights. So yeah, no, it's greatly appreciated.
Well, my pleasure. Thank you so much, Ben. It's been really good.
Good. Just lastly to the listeners, it'd be great to hear your views and opinions on the methods and thoughts of Dorigen around ensuring systems are endured and enjoyed. So many thanks for your time.
Pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed Talking Tech Journeys, and we'll catch you next time. Good company and colleagues in a career make the journey more rewarding. If you did enjoy, please take a moment to subscribe, rate and review us on your favourite podcast platform. It really helps us reach more listeners like you. Don't forget to follow and join the Talking Tech Journeys the podcast group on LinkedIn, where you can join in debate and message us directly if you'd like to be considered as a guest, have any questions, comments or topic suggestions. You can also email ben.whiteley@bpmtech.co.uk. Until next time, enjoy your journey.